That picture is grainy. Can't see faces, recognize places, wobbly hands give us hazy spaces. Annoying our sensibilities, spoiled by perfection, a photo fail, we'd say. Why don't you edit, crop, adjust that lighting, Photoshop, create a captivating aura around objects and persons and nature? The ease of accessing photos immediately with cameras that spit them out onto paper within seconds no longer holds appeal. We've lost interest in Polaroid shots from previous eras. Of what use are these relics now? These photos that grate our fine-tuned sense of fine art. The images don't seem real. They aren't natural. They're substandard, antiquated. We see it differently now, more clearly. Trained eye slips easily from video to portrait to macro to slow-mo to landscape to cityscape. Snapshot has exited stage left to make space for Snapchat. We've abandoned the old. They're empty, the whole lot of them. Maybe a little dusty, covered in film. No color, no appeal. Nothing to hold our attention. But wait, that isn't what the curator of this collection sees. She sees jar upon jar of air receptacles, all gloriously filled to the brim with a delicate fusion of nitrogen, oxygen, argon, carbon dioxide, neon, helium, and iodine. Who knew? She does. Because she is convinced that this collection of oddly shaped glass jars, some with lids and some without, can save her from the threat of impending asphyxiation experienced as a result of a warming globe. Air, after all, is our lifeline to further existence. We stifle our laughter, careful not to insult, but rather to protect this deluded soul who believes with all her heart. Air will save us. This air, this is all we need. She's a grand, regal lady, claimed as our lady both by the faithful and by loyal world citizens. Her pipe organs and deep-throated bells, her nave and buttresses and chapels, along with her transepts, her rose-colored windows, vaults, arches, and soaring towers have ignited fierce hatred and passionate devotion in the centuries since her birth and coming of age in the 12th to the 14th centuries. Her place of birth was the grave of previous edifices for the faithful. She grew out of their fire, took her first breath by filling her lungs with the air they had exhaled, her predecessors, her ancestors. She is splendid. She is resolute. She is rotundly glorious. And she has been humiliated. More than once in her lifetime, she's been stripped of her adornments, bandied from there to here and back again in power grabs of church and state. When her countenance became marred by centuries of soot and grime, she has been embraced with elaborate structures so her face and her eyes, her stately neck, her lavish, full-bodied royalty could be scraped and sandblasted and restored to her lustrous beauty. She has suffered destructive human power and overwhelming powers of nature, yet she has survived. Her fractures have been wrapped in enormous body casts, sometimes weighing 250 tons. To argue we have known Our Lady fully and wholly would be to claim knowing how a young sapling will grow into maturity, or claiming to predict with vehement certainty that our offspring will evolve into astronauts, or artists, or weavers of allegory. Each century, each blow, each recovery, each caress has altered Our Lady's body. Yet each iteration has been completely and undeniably her. She has stood, and she still stands. If we were to look carefully at all three images, consider all three metaphors, each one offers an in-the-moment mental image. A snapshot, a Polaroid photo, gives a picture of one slice of time, both the image captured and how it was captured. Air, that absolute vital element for our survival, exists in empty jars, but it cannot be contained in nor confined to that. A cathedral, a masterpiece, has stood for generations, yet not without significant changes to the core of its being, nor without consistent, intentional investment into its structural integrity. What was true of the Polaroid snapshot, the air within confining jars, and the cathedral at its first unveiling remains true. What happened after or around these realities does not eclipse that which always has been and will forever be true. One does not negate the other. The same is true for the words in Psalm 124. Here the psalmist exults in his experience of the divine, using descriptors we may find difficult to accept. Things like, the divine is on our side. The divine fights against our enemies. We would be nowhere without God. God has not allowed us to fail. God has set our side free. Invariably, we then question, is God on the side of some, but not of others? If we credit God with our having survived, having thrived, being where we are today, what does that say of those who have had a different path? If people are not free, does that mean that God has not chosen to set them free? These are the perplexing questions that come from a flat reading of Scripture. But would we not say there were times when we experienced hair-raisingly close calls? Where we have called out to God, and we are certain that our survival can only be credited to the faithfulness of the divine? Can we not also echo the words of the psalmist, our help is in the name of Yahweh who made heaven and earth? We might all agree that yes, all of that has been true. We have been the joyful recipients of blessing and care and protection of the divine. We can say this with certainty because we firmly believe that God is for us, that God is life, not destruction, that God is love, not retribution. We would affirm that all of this is true. Here is where our metaphors can help. A snapshot, a limited amount of air, one face of an edifice that has stood for generations. It is a slice in time. True, accurate, and real, but still only a slice. in the same way we see God as being with us in threatening circumstances, guiding us to freedom when we have felt trapped, showing a way out when we are surrounded by the flood, the water, the raging torrent. We have been there, and if we haven't yet taken note of it, the time will come where we do notice. If we were to take a photograph with a high-powered digital camera today and compare it to a Polaroid snapshot in the same place in the 1980s, we would see two very different-looking images, yet they both reflect the same location. We could carry each of the jars of air out to the seaside and make the comparison between the wind coming off this massive body of water with the minute amount of air contained in jars. We have a very different image, yet both are air. Had we been alive when the final ornate fixture was hung in the Notre Dame Cathedral at its completion, we may not find it there today. It may have been stolen or destroyed at the time of the French Revolution or burned in a fire, but the edifice is still the Notre Dame Cathedral. What we know and what we think we know about God today is as small as one jar of air placed on an expanse of beach amidst the howling winds of the Pacific Ocean. What the psalmist experienced of God is true. What we experience of God is true. How God will be experienced in generations to come will still be true. It may feel contradictory, but one slice does not equal the whole. Neither does the whole invalidate the slice. We can move forward confidently, being grateful for divine protection, wisdom, and encouragement in good times. Equally, we can move forward confidently, knowing that God is for us. God is love, not retribution. God is life, not destruction, even in dark and perilous times. The divine will be with us regardless of our circumstances. Of this, we can be certain.